Gators Breakdown, because there's never a dull moment in Gator Nation.
The Gators Breakdown podcast is ready to go. I'm your host, David Waters. You can find me on social media at GatorDave_SEC. And if you're watching the YouTube version, you already see my very special guest, Gerry Hamilton. He joined us last year from On Texas Football, giving us a good preview of these Texas Longhorns. So, Gerry, thanks once again for hopping on Gators Breakdown for a matchup that's kind of lost its luster a little bit from preseason notions, but here we are anyway, as both teams coming off of a bye week.
Yeah. So both teams got a win, but more importantly, did they get healthy enough?
Yeah.
I think that's the question. I think Texas may be a little ahead of Florida from a health perspective. I'm not sure. Do we think Billy Napier gave out the whole injury report last night? And we only have guys out, nobody questionable, nobody probable. I mean, like that doesn't seem like that one didn't pass my smell test really. But I think Florida's got more season-ending injuries. Obviously, Texas had one preseason to a backup right tackle. So Florida's dealing with a little bit, especially on defense, more of the injury bug than Texas is. We'll see where Texas's running backs are at entering this game, and I'm sure we're going to talk about it. But those running backs are going to be very important if the rain's blowing sideways and the wind's blowing 25.
Yeah, there was a chance. You and I were talking before we came on. There's some nasty weather in Gainesville.
Yes.
It could literally be a swamp there on Saturday. So we'll see what that brings us and how it affects the game. But everybody, before we get started, hit that like button, comment, subscribe right here on this episode of Gators Breakdown. Lots to get into as Florida and Texas get together Saturday in the swamp. So, Gerry, so I've asked this question a little bit throughout the week, but with Texas. All we've seen is Ohio State and some overmatched opponents. So What do you think you know about this team and what's still up in the air?
I think what you know about this team is the defense is really good. Even though they haven't played three talented opponents after Ohio State, I think just knowing this roster, knowing these kids as recruits, knowing the player development, knowing the guys from the portal and the interior defensive line, I think this defense is really good. At all three levels, they've got a lot of talent. Now, I will say this. I expect Florida to go after Jalen Gilbo at one of the corner spots, weather permitting, right? Because teams have tried to attack him a little bit because he's a nickel, move the corner, and short area quickness. I kind of wonder about that with Jalen Gilbo a little bit in coverage if you can get him in space. But I think we know that the Texas defensive front is really good. They have depth there at all across the board. Colin Simmons is kind of waiting on his breakout game. For a guy that was a preseason All-American level player and the freshman of the year, the Sean Alexander winner. But I think Anthony Hill's tremendous. They haven't blitzed him a lot this year. Let's see what happens Saturday in the swamp there. The interior D-line, I thought Texas did a great job in the portal. Murad Watson's really good. They get Alex January, the sophomore from Duncanville, back off injuries, missed the last two games. He started the opener against Ohio State. Travis Shaw, the North Carolina transfer. Cole Brevard, the Purdue transfer. And then Hero Kanu, out of the transfer from Ohio State's probably the guy that's played well above expectations this year. They've played him at the big edge. They've played him in the interior. But though they did a great job in the portal, those guys have really come through. The edges are really talented. The linebackers are really good. Leonga Lafau plays the run in between the tackles exceptionally well. The young backer, Ty Anthony Smith, the sophomore, who flipped from A&M to Texas close to signing day after Jimbo Fisher was fired at A&M. He is a budding star. He is a really good space player. Michael Taft is consistent at safety, gets everybody lined up. Jelani McDonald, the other safety for Florida fans, you want to watch him. He's the guy who maybe he's taken the biggest leap on the defense from last year to this year. He's vaulting himself in the having a decision to make after his junior year. Then Manny Muhammad's a really good technician at one corner. But again, I think Jalen Gilbo is who some teams have tried to attack in the non-con. So watch for that with the Florida wide receivers and Billy Napier to see what they try to dial up. But the whole key, I think, for Florida against the Texas team, what we know about Texas is I think Texas has been extremely vanilla. Now, PK is a vanilla coach. He tries to get not vanilla. I don't want to sound insulting, but he pretty much tries to win with pressure with four, right? And he brings the fifth occasionally, but he's not they're not huge exotic guys to where they bring numbers. Johnny Nanson's brought some of that to this Texas team, but I think defensively they've been able to play really vanilla because of the last 3 opponents. They could outmatch physically and win the ball game. They did play a little bit more man with some different NASCAR package looks against Sam Houston, who was really overwhelmed talent-wise. But that's the note. And the other thing you know now, they did great work in the portal at punter and kicker. They've improved greatly there. Now, and I think that's where a game like this Saturday, if the weather is an issue, that's going to be big in this game. Experience at kicker. If you have a 15-mile-an-hour crosswind, potentially, or down cross or into cross, that's a little different game if the field's wet. So that experience there, the experience punting the football in wet conditions, if your punter's had that, I think those things are important. That's the knowns. What we don't know offensively is there going to be consistency from this Texas team. And Houston State Arch got some confidence back. I know we'll get into it, but the Texas fan base, by and large, is kind of holding their breath, waiting to see what Texas looks like offensively in the swamp against what's a really good Florida defense.
Gerry, you mentioned that, and kind of maybe on different levels, but these teams are kind of almost mirror images of each other right now. You lean on the defense to be the better side of the ball. Yep. Your superstar quarterback hasn't played as well as you wanted him to. Now, Florida's had LSU and Miami on the schedule as well, and unfortunate loss to USF that probably should have, of course, never happened, but it did. But you should ask. Both programs kind of just seem to be asking the same questions about their team right now, even though it's a little bit different level. Like, I still put Texas's defense above Florida's defense, even though Florida's defense is good. Yeah. You got offensive line questions that both teams have, and are both kind of pointing and zeroing on the right side of the offensive line. So there's just a lot of similar questions for both teams right now.
Yeah, like I think the most important down in this game is first down. Because we know these two offenses are rough on third down.
Yes.
Because they've been in too many 3rd and 7 pluses this year, both of them.
Yep.
And it's been self-inflicted, right? It's penalties at the wrong time on 2nd and 2 that bump you back. A penalty on 3rd and 1 that takes you from run to 3rd and 6. It's been a hold after Texas first play of the game. I think it was maybe saying it was a UTEP game, I guess it was. They had 28-yard reverse run on the first play of the game. Wide receiver held on the perimeter, negated explosive. That's kind of been the story. And then Arch Manning, he went through a loss of confidence. It was really weird. He got some of it back against Sam Houston State. But we'll see what happens if the Florida defense gets after him. But I think first down for both of these teams and both of these quarterbacks is massive in this game. It's normally who can win on third downs, but I think we both have seen these offenses struggle on third downs because they've been in too many 3rd and medium and longs, and the defenses are both too good to put yourself in a lot of 3rd and longs in this game. So the key is first downs. Who can win on first downs and help their quarterbacks? Lagway, through his, I think, confidence struggles is a big part of it. And I'm not sure he's been healthy since high school, honestly. And then Arch was just a loss of confidence. I mean, he was missing the easy throws. He was missing throws he'd been making since 5th grade, training with Chad Morris at QB country, right? I mean, it was weird to watch his confidence just go down, especially that UTEP game. It was really ugly. He got it back against Sam and started making some high-level throws. But who can help their quarterback in this game? First down, I think, David, is the most important down for these teams and these quarterbacks Saturday.
Yeah, I think we've heard both coaches speak on it too this week too. It's like, hey, it was a bye week emphasis for us to figure out something on third down because we got to be better on 1st and 2nd to not put ourselves in that situation.
You don't want to be 3rd and 8 against these two defenses.
You really don't. You really don't. So, Gerry, we've teased it long enough. Arch Manning, of course, and it's his first, road game at Ohio State, 3 straight home games, now back on the road in the swamp. Florida plays a lot of too high safety, not giving up back-breaking explosives. So I guess how do we look at it? You mentioned confidence there, but also the word patience, I think, is going to come to mind too for me with Arch. How patient does he need to be and maybe happy living in that short to intermediate range? And I know there's been talk about pushing the ball down the field this week, but Florida's defense hasn't necessarily given that up yet. So it is an interesting dynamic of how patient can you be as Arch Manning to maybe settle and then hit the spots when you need to hit those spots.
Yeah, I think it's a huge question going into this game. And I think the other thing is what's Sark going to do from a play calling standpoint? Because, look, I think going into this year, last year Texas led the country in pass completions 5 yards or less, right? And Sark schemed that up because Quinn was so good in the short passing game. He could change his arm slot angles, and he got the ball out with timing and put the ball perfectly on guys' numbers in stride to where they could go maximize, right? And Texas also blocked well on the perimeter last year. They have not this season. Emmett Mosley, the receiver transfer from Stanford, is probably their best perimeter blocker. He hasn't played all year. He's supposed to play Saturday. We'll see how much. But what does Sark do from a play calling standpoint, especially early in this game, to help Arch out? Can that be an extension of the run game against a really good defense? That's my question, because that was what Texas did last year. But the personnel and the way they've attacked defenses this year has been totally different. It's been more Arch under center. It's been more play action, kind of bringing back some of those downfield off through the play action passes with Arch Manning and part of the Sark scheme that they've kind of brought out. I'm not sure because of what you said against Florida and the weather. Weather's going to how bad this is or what this wind truly looks like and this rain looks like is going to affect play calling in this game. And it's going to affect offensive and defensive calls, by the way. But you hit the nail on the head. How patient is Arch, and how does Sark set this thing up for him against a really good defense? Because if you're Florida, you want him progressing the third read because you have the athletes to react and hopefully get pressure at that point. What's interesting to me about Florida, and you can talk about this, David, is their pass rush is, they're not a great pass rush team on paper, right? So are they going to be able to get the pressure on Arch if it's longer developing plays, or are they just going to be dependent on sound back end coverage and communication? I think Arch is going to progress as the season moves along. I'll tell you this. I think the first quarter is huge for Arch Manning, and I think for DJ Lagway too.
Yeah.
Whichever one of these, because if one of these quarterbacks gets off to a rough start in the first quarter, man, there's going to be a lot. I'm not going to say cobwebs, but man, that game gets a lot tougher for those guys based on what's happened this season. So I think the way Sark sets this game up for Arch from a script standpoint is going to be interesting to watch. I would think you're going to get some extension of run game completions for him early, just to kind of get him in a groove, more so than they did against Ohio State. Now, they called Arch's favorite play, that first play to Ohio State game. It was a little waggle to the right, and he underthrew DeAndre Miller's wide open by 7 yards.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of started the Texas offense was like, woof. We hadn't seen that before. So I think getting some easy completions for Arch early in this game, letting him build up to, and not that you can call a game conservative against a good defense, but I think there's an element of getting your quarterback in a rhythm on the road in what will be a hostile environment to start. We'll see which way that goes. But I think the first quarter is huge for both these quarterbacks, David. So who's going to gain confidence early in this game? I think it could tell the quarterback story.
I'm glad you brought that up. In an earlier episode this week, me and a co-host, we were talking about how does Sark attack this, because if Florida's offense looks like they have, you don't have to get too aggressive, and you can lean on your defense a bit, but that's also not totally Sark's mantra. He loves
not his MO. That's not his deal. No.
Right. So it's like, do you start aggressive, and then if it doesn't start out well, then you can dial it back? Or like you said, do you have to get Arch comfortable? To me, it's a really interesting dynamic, you said, of how Sark really attacks this.
I'll throw another part at it, and this may be the most important part of all this discussion. How has Texas offensive line performed early in this game against Florida? Because so what's happened to Texas is Ohio State played Texas pretty much straight up, right? So they didn't bring a lot of numbers at Texas. They played them straight up, and I think Florida's going to copy that game plan, or I would if I was Florida. Yeah. Now, they may be thinking Arch is further along now than he was then. But how does the offensive line handle the Florida defensive front and linebackers early? This may be your whole key to what Sark does from his script. If he kind of veers from his script, it could be nothing to do with Arch. It could be how his offensive line is handling bigger bodies. The last 3 weeks, it's been smaller bodies. There's been a lot of slanting, right? There's been a lot of twist, a lot of games played up front, and a lot of just trying to win with quickness, leverage, beat them to landmarks in the run game, that sort of thing. Florida's going to be a bigger defensive front, more like Ohio State's was. So how does Texas offensive line play early in this game may dictate a lot of what we're talking about. If they look like they're playing well against Florida's front, then I think that may open some more things up for Sark to where he may not have to play as much 12 personnel from a protection standpoint.
Good points. Good points. Something else that could factor into all this: Quintravion Wisner.
Yeah.
It's looks to return to the lineup as you said. He's missed the last 3 games. You mentioned the offensive line there, but I guess pairing that, how important is he to the rush attack? What has the Texas rushing offense been missing when he's been out?
Yeah, he's a great cutback runner, right? He's a natural outside zone guy. He sees the cutback well. Now, he can run it inside. He's not a bigger back, but he's tough, right? He's a tough kid. But they've been missing that consistent vision, consistent making the right read, making the right cut, maximizing those runs. 16 carries for 80 yards at the shoe is nothing to sneeze about, right? He was a 1,000-yard rusher who went 33 for 187 against A&M, had his best games late in the season as he kind of built up his sophomore year. But I think he's a big key to this, especially because C.J. Baxter's doubtful. And what's interesting, again, about this weather, C.J. Baxter would be what you call your mutter, right? He's your runner in between the tackles, more of your gap power scheme guy. If it's rainy, if it's windy, if it affects your play call, and it becomes more of a move the chains game against a really good defense, which it could be anyways. We'll see. If Cedric Baxter can't go, that'll be interesting to see what Texas does there. But Trey Wisner's got really good vision. He really sees things well. He has really good timing. He presses the hole, but he also has patience at the same time. He's a really solid back. The guy to watch for Florida fans, if Baxter can't go, will be freshman James Simon out of Shreveport. I think he's got a chance to be a really, really good player. I'm not saying Jaden Ball good, because I think Jaden Ball is exceptional, but I think he has a chance to be a really good player, and he's got great instincts running the football. So if C.J. Baxter can't go, I think you could see maybe a little bit of combination of Trey Wisner and James Simon in this game. The question with James Simon is his pass protection where they need it to be in this game?
Good point there. I forgot about Baxter being doubtful there.
He's their best pass protector. He's their best inside runner.
In a recruiting battle, well, I don't know how much of a recruiting battle it was, but it's certainly a guy Florida was really wanted at the time. So interesting angle there, of course. And before we go to the defense, Gerry, maybe a little bit of a slower start for the relationship on the field between Arch Manning and Ryan Wingo, but the last 2 games certainly have been better in that regard. Come together 7 times, 125 yards, 3 touchdowns. And I know the message has been this week that maybe those guys were pressing a bit. So I guess the question is that just the beginning of the relationship blossoming the last 2 weeks? But certainly Parker Livingston, who leads the team in receiving, has been Arch's best friend so far on the field. Yeah. So interesting dynamic there with Wingo, because we know the talent that guy is.
Yes. Yeah, no, he's a big-time talent. Now, you got to catch the football, and you got to run the right routes, and you got to block on the perimeter, right? And I think he can. I think look, if they were pressing, I don't know if I 100% have the answer to this. All I know is there were drops, right? And when Arch made a good throw, Wingo dropped it. When Wingo's wide open, Arch threw it at his feet. It's just been ugly for those 2 guys the first 3 games of the year, and then they started to get it together. Ryan Wingo, very talented football player, though. I think, he missed a little bit of time in fall camp with dehydration, so I don't know how much that truly set him back. But I think they were just misfiring. And then when Arch threw it, made a great throw to Wingo, he happened to drop it. So it was just ugly between those 2 guys for about 2.5 games, but they pulled it together. But I'll say this, I think DeAndre Moore is the most important receiver for Texas Saturday. He plays out of the slot. He's a tremendous route runner, a guy that preseason was getting some first and second round NFL grades. He missed the UTEP game. He was back for Sam Houston. I think the downfield passing game is going to be very difficult in this game because of the weather and the defenses. So I really look at DeAndre Moore as being the key for Arch Manning in this Texas passing game. Now, I'm not saying if a coverage is blown or something that a big play can't happen down the field, but I'm saying if Florida plays sound football and that in Texas can't get him out of that too high shell, I think you got to watch DeAndre Moore in this game.
I'm glad you said that, because I do think a key, if Florida's pass rush can't get to Arch, is can Arch place it behind the linebackers and in front of those safeties over the middle?
Yes.
And there's your guy that you're looking for right there.
That's it. He runs a lot of the overs, right? He's also he runs really good post corner routes. Also, that'll be interesting too. Is the way Sark? How does he set Arch up in this game? Will there be more throws to the boundary, or will they really test over the middle? I think that now you have to have a little balance.
Yeah.
But who will they attack at the Florida secondary with Dijon Johnson out and now Gates is out for the year, right? Which is weird. I'd almost want to ask you about that because Billy Napier's like, we hope to have him back. Oh, shoulder surgery's done a day later. Like, what? Well, that was weird. But who does Texas, from your perspective, if you were Texas, who would you go after in that secondary?
Man, I mean, Cormani McClain has played really well.
He's grown up mentally, finally.
So you feel good. I guess if Florida has to go to a third corner, I mean, I probably would still, and if you want to count nickel in this, I'd probably still target Sharif Denson, who may be in the slot versus Moore. So that probably
that's the key matchup then, probably.
That's where I would go. Hey, Gerry, you brought him up before I even did. As we move to the Texas defense, Gerry Hamilton right here on Texas football, previewing these Texas Longhorns. A couple more thoughts from him as we move to the Texas defense. But, hey, you brought up a guy we all love right here in Florida, running back Jaden Ball. And we want him to get the ball even more. And he may do so now because of Jacoby Jackson being out for the Gators in this game. But Texas tackles really well on defense. Has been tackling really well all season long. We know Jacoby Jackson's out for Florida, and that might mean Ball gets more carries, and he should have been getting more carries anyway, but he's been so good at breaking tackles, making defenders miss. Texas only has 26 missed tackles throughout the season so far. So if the Florida offensive line can give Ball a little more help, that could be a strength-on-strength matchup there.
Look, the DJ Lagway is being talked about the most coming into this game, and I get it from a Florida perspective and a national perspective. I think Jaden Ball is the guy for Florida in this game. Look, especially, and I don't want to keep going back to the weather but I think that accentuates it. But look, you will not find bigger Jaden Ball fans in the SEC and in the country than Bobby Burton and myself at On Texas Football. We think the guy is a stud, a guy that may play 10 years in the NFL if he stays healthy. He's got the size, he's got the vision, he's got he's got really good feet. He can jump cut, he can skip cut, he can do everything you want as a back. He can run with power, he can fall forward and finish that way. He can bounce it. I mean, he's just got so much instinctiveness to go with that frame and those feet. I think this is the guy. This is the key for the Texas defense and for the Florida offense. Look, if they can get him, if Florida can get him to 20 carries, 22 carries for 85, 90 yards in this game, I think that's going to help DJ Lagway be more successful in this game. If Texas can take Ball away, what do you have, 12 for 46 against Miami? If it's a similar number against Texas, I think Florida's in trouble because they have to be able to establish him on the ground. In this game. If they can't, then Texas has so much pass rush ability that hasn't been brought out this year from so many different spots, and they're good in the secondary. They have playmakers in the secondary, but that's going to make it tough on Lagway. I really believe Jaden Ball is the key for Florida going into this game. They can talk about Lagway all they want, the fan bases and nationally, but if Florida can't get Jaden Ball going in this game, that places a lot of pressure on DJ Lagway.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, it's not only because Ball can do some special things, but to really help Lagway out. Yes. Just so much.
Take some pressure. Release the pressure valve a little bit, man.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, you mentioned how Texas hit the transfer portal really hard on the defensive front, and you brought his name up earlier, but I don't know how close it was. It seemed close on the Florida's end, but Hero Canoe, when he hit the portal, it seemed like a Florida lean maybe even for a little while, and then he ends up at Texas. And by the way, how many recruiting battles lately between Florida and Texas for the last couple of cycles, right? It's been a lot.
It's fun. I've wanted this for a long time, actually.
You guys have got your fair share from Florida, and Florida's done pretty well in Texas. Right. So it's been an interesting dynamic since you guys have joined the SEC.
Hey, Joseph Mbaktu was committed to both schools for about 12 hours last cycle.
That's true. So that's a side angle to, I think there's just so many. I would love
Jarrett Gibson grew up in Gainesville as a Florida commitment.
Yeah,
third team running back at Texas right now.
Philsamy, the defensive back. I don't know if he's going to play or not, but
I think he is back this week. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So sidebar there. Interesting.
Garville in this class,
right? There's just been a lot of these guys, but Hero Canoe up front, Cole Brevard, Levon. I mean, that list, like I said, 6 transfer portal guys. You did mention it earlier, and something that has really stood out. But how have they meshed with the guys who were like already on the roster?
Yeah. So what's interesting is they really only had one returnee that had played, and that was Alex January, who's played sparingly as a true freshman. And he's a really good player. I think he may play. He should be a Sunday player if he stays healthy. So they needed that infusion of experience and talent. And I think Murad Watson, the freshman All-American from Syracuse, is a stud. Like, I think he's really good. He's the guy to watch if I'm a Florida fan up front in this game, because he is really good against the run. That's the interesting thing is, so Florida, Jake Slaughter, those guys, interior OL was supposed to be the strength of this offensive line, and I think is the strength of this offensive line. I said this before the season. I thought Texas, despite losing Alfred Collins and Vernon Broughton, were going to play the run better this year with this group, because Travis Shaw is a run stopper. He's a 4 and 5 star. It's had all sorts of issues, injuries, and consistency issues, but he's playing at a high level for Texas. Cole Brevard's played a ton of snaps over the ball in the Big Ten. He looks like a square when you see him on the field. He's good against the run. Hero Canoe's been really good. And it's to the point where, like, another guy at Florida Texas battle, Myron Charles, a freshman from Port Charlotte, and the other freshman, Josiah Sharma. Texas loves those guys, but you're not going to see them on the field much, because the guys with experience that have come in are playing at such a high level. And I really do think the D-line coach at Texas, Kenny Baker, interior D-line coach, he was at the Miami Dolphins, then he went to Texas. I think he is one of the rising position coaching stars in college football. He has done great work with last year's defensive line and again this year. But this group can play the run, or I think they can play the run. Florida's going to test it Saturday. But I think the depth of those guys, how they can roll in numbers. Levon Johnson hadn't even played much out of Maryland. He was a starter at Maryland. He had a high ankle sprain early in fall camp. When he's been in, he's looked pretty good too. I think Texas has numbers and depth, and that's why they're going to play the run better, because I don't think guys have to play tired on this team.
Gotcha. Jerry, last thought here. And look, I still think there is a switch for Lagway at some point this season.
I do too.
Maybe not at the level some of us thought, but to be a good quarterback at some point this year. I question if it's going to happen versus Texas. Like, he could be better, but this defense can still limit what he can do. Moving to the secondary, you did talk about those guys, but is this really a secondary Lagway can find his groove against?
You know, here's the thing. This Ohio State has tremendous wide receivers, right? Jeremiah Smith, and that whole group of guys. But because Julian Sand was a first-time starting quarterback in Ohio State, and the way that game went, I don't think Texas secondary's truly been tested down the field this year. And that is Lagway's strength to me, is throwing the ball down the field. He has the big arm, right? He's got to make the right decisions. But if the weather cooperates, and I do think, look, I have a lot of respect for the Florida receivers. I saw Eugene Wilson at an Under Armour camp in Miami, and I walked away talking about him like that guy would play in the NFL. He had the injury bug. He's such a talented kid. Vernell Brown, saw him in high school, and I went to see DeAndre Robinson at Jones. Again, one of those Texas-Florida guys battles. Vernell Brown's really explosive. J. Michael Sturdivant from Flower Mound Marcus in the Dallas area. I saw him in high school, 6'3", 210, and ran in the 10.6s in high school. Now you get Dallas Wilson, who Texas tried to flip from Oregon. Florida was the one that flipped him. We could talk about recruiting all day here. But I have a lot of respect for the Florida receiver corps, and I do think that Ohio State didn't have to press the ball down the field against Texas. They missed on one. They hit on one. But I think Florida, if they can buy time, I think that could be an area where they're going to test Jalen Gilbo down the field. I really believe that. Florida will test Jalen Gilbo. And they'll see if they can get – now the freshman nickel, Grayson Littleton, out of Wiregrass Ranch, who flipped from Clemson, has been the star of the #1 ranked recruiting class for Texas. I mean, he started early in his career. He can play reps at corner. That's how talented he is. He is so football smart and savvy. Now, he's been tested. We'll see if Florida tries to go at him a little bit. But I do think Jalen Gilbo, Ohio State got him, even though Gilbo had pretty good coverage. They got him for the long touchdown with Carnell Tate. Then they were behind him again another time. You will see Florida try to attack Jalen Gilbo. If Jalen Gilbo kind of falters, wavers, I think you could see a Grayson Littleton play some corner in this game if that's what's needed. But I think Florida will attack Jalen Gilbo like other teams have tried this year, and we'll see how Gilbo handles that. But Florida, I have a lot of respect for their wide receiver corps. I think they're really good, really talented.
Good stuff. Good stuff, Gerry. Hey, once again, I can't thank you enough. We did it last year. I was like, I got to get Gerry back on. I love the way he talks Texas football. I had to get him back on. So, Gerry, on Texas football, hey, thank you so much for
hopping. You got it, David. Thank you.
All right. See you later, man. Thank you. And before we move forward, remember, everybody, get even more interaction with Gators Breakdown Plus. Go to GatorsBreakdownPlus.com, sign up for extra episodes, early access episodes. Speaking of the episodes, if you don't want to hear all the ads that it comes with during football season, everybody wants to get their name out there during football season. Well, if you want the ad-free versions of Gators Breakdown, you can get them right there at Gators Breakdown Plus and plus. Right, plus. Everything's a plus these days. But one big plus of Gators Breakdown Plus, of course, is that Discord chat. And we have the member chats there every week. The conversation keeps going. Of course, there's all kinds of conversation going on now. Coaching, still talking about games, all that stuff. If you want to take part in the conversation, sign up at GatorsBreakdownPlus.com. All right, so let's get to it. Everybody hit that like button one more time. If you haven't done so yet, subscribe, leave some comments. Big thanks to Gerry right there, giving us a preview of Texas. But let's keep it going right here, and let's hear from head coach Billy Napier on the team's kind of status, progress. Practicing, of course, the bye week last week, even more practice this week, more emphasis on Texas this week in practice. Here's Billy Napier on the progress of the team.
It's another week in the SEC, right, against a formidable opponent. We have a ton of respect for who's coming in here this weekend, and we're excited about the challenges that come with that. But I thought in general here we've had a good couple days of work. Thought we got better from yesterday to today. And the intensity was probably the best it's been in a long time out there. So I think in general, we're hopeful that will translate to better football on Saturday. We have to continue to work on the mental aspect. Tomorrow will be an important day to kind of polish things up. And then in general, we're getting healthier. And certainly some of the new players that are available have helped us as well. So in general, I was pleased with today's practice. It was a lot of fun out there. And I think I saw guys competing and enjoying that and making each other better. I think that's an important part. To be a really good football team, you have to improve during the season every week. And I think the open date helped us do that, and I'm hopeful the last couple of days we've gotten better. So more work to do. We understand that Texas has a good football team, and it's going to be that way the rest of the way, right? So each week will require our best, and this week's no different than the last couple. So in general, this is going to be a huge opportunity. We need BHG and Steve Spurrier Field and the Swamp to be special this Saturday. We need to get in there early, and we need to make this what it's always been around here is one of the epic game day atmospheres and environments. And I know our fans are excited about this one. This one should be a fun day at the park. We need their help.
Well, the team's going to have to do their part on that end, right? I mean, team's going to have to play well. I mean, we know the kind of toxicity that's out there right now because of the 1-3 start and not a lot of belief in where this team is heading. It's going to be up to the team. I mean, you'll get a base level of excitement just because it is a home game. You'll get that just because of a Florida Gator crowd. But if you want it to be the best it can be, we know the team's going to have to play well. Yeah, you will be loud on third down for Texas's first drive or whatever, but you got to give, if you want the sustained advantage Ben Hill Griffin Stadium can give you, then the team's going to have to do their part. Your offense is going to have to score some points. Defense is going to have to continue to play the way they have been playing. But if you really want to get the crowd into it, we need to see the explosive plays that we thought we'd be seeing from DJ Lagway in this receiving core this year. Some big runs blocked by the offensive line and Jaden Ball without Jacoby Jackson now. Duke Clark, KD Daniels now, of course, coming up. So, yeah, but the team's going to have to do their part if you want the ultimate full advantage of the Swamp. It's sad it has to be that way. There's going to be a base level of support. There's always going to be at Florida. But we talked about it this week. This game, the hype, nowhere near what it could have, should have, would have been. So the teams will have to do their part even more so. And, I hope it's there. I hope we see a good performance there. I hate seeing this team and hate feeling the way about this team that we feel right now. But, hey, it's what the team has produced so far. And, they're going to have to go do their part and really make this the full experience and effectiveness against Texas. That's just the reality of it all. A lot going on during the bye week and getting some more reps there. And Billy Napier has said, sees a certain look in Lagway's eyes, and this team is really competing and all that. I mean, okay, that's great and here on the surface, but it shouldn't take these quote unquote wake up calls to get the level of effort that's needed to go out there and win games. It should have been there from the start. So, yeah, you can go out there and win versus Texas, and I hope you do. But the question is going to remain, why does it take losses? Why does it take a early bye week to get things in sync and get going and not be ready to go win the first game of the season, the first big game of the season? But all that's in the past now. All that's in the past. The question is going to remain, why such a bad start, no matter what happens from here on out? All right, so we'll hear some more from Billy Napier as we get to a little bit more of the preview and the prediction coming up here at the end of this episode. But let's go on the offensive side. Napier talking about Lagway and also getting this group of receivers finally fully healthy.
How far has DJ come since the Miami game?
I would just say today he was probably his best day of practice since he started practicing. Now, he still made a handful of mistakes out there like you would expect against a really good defense. But in general, he is improving each day. And that's the emphasis. Just wake up, go at it again, be better when you go to bed tomorrow night. I think that just stack days, attention to detail, plan your work your plan, follow through, take the feedback. But I just think we've kind of changed the practice format to give him more opportunities, because that's ultimately what he needs. He just needs to get calibrated, if that makes sense. So I'm hopeful that plan's worked.
How much can the wide receiver room also help him this week? I know you guys have been banged up there. Is this the healthiest the room has been?
I would say so. Aiden's healthy, Dallas is healthy, J. Mike is back. Trey and VB. I mean, we've got the guys. TJ Abrams had a great practice today. So yeah, I would say that we've had the 2 or 3 of the main guys, but we've been missing a piece or two each week, and that's normal. So, but I think we got the full gauntlet out there ready to go for Saturday.
Full gauntlet of receivers. There we go. And will this help Lagway break out of his funk? I mean, if LSU and Miami are any indication, teams are going to give him some opportunity by the way they played. Both games there showed plenty of single high coverage with another safety helping in run support at times. Add to that, Texas, it has a stingy pass defense in general. While there's a chance Lagway figures it out at some point this season, I'm not sure Texas is the defense to do so. He can be better. I think we can see signs of it. But even if he does play better, this is still a really good Texas defense. So if he gets in a groove, I think we'll be able to tell it if he looks better. But does better still equal an offense playing well enough to lead to a win? And I don't know. I think the offense can still play better, and you're on the losing end of this just because of how good Texas's defense is. And look, the bye week may have helped address Lagway's struggles, but going into this, the current statistics are concerning. I mean, 5.7 yards per attempt, 6.5 yards average depth of target, 7 turnover-worthy throws across 4 games, a 5 interception game. 5 passing touchdowns on the season, 6 interceptions overall. 5 that LSU game really comes to mind, and then to protect the ball, not taking a lot of risk versus Miami, so there's got to be a balance somewhere of taking risk and having success in those risks and not turning the ball over. In the Miami game, it was 61 yards on 23 passing attempts. Texas, they'll go challenge Lagway, zone coverage, constantly shifting looks before and after the snap, keeping eyes on Lagway, force him to kind of demonstrate that, all right, well, the bye week is going to yield improvement. You're going to have to prove it. You're going to have to prove it. I know they've worked on a lot of things, giving him more reps. What does that mean? Billy Napier said he's kind of out of training camp now. All right, well, we need to see it. So what can help him? What can help him? Hopefully, having that full arsenal of wide receivers. How much does Dallas Wilson contribute? Is it too much to ask in his first game to be a difference maker against a really good defense? Probably so. Probably so. But for this passing game, I'm just not sure. Texas's secondary is the last opponent you want to face with a quarterback struggling with kind of vision and decision making right now. Really good, athletic, sticky group there. Florida would be smart, I think. And we've been saying it kind of all, first month of the season, emphasizing the run game. But Texas can get you there too. But, man, you're going to have to find something to help out Lagway, to help out this offense. Find something in this run game. Maybe some misdirection, more gap scheme, run right at them. Help neutralize the Texas pass rush. And in the passing game, can you make Texas defenders, secondary guys, tackle in space? And for that whole Texas defense, make them tackle in space rather than, just kind of spearheading, simply headhunting Lagway in the backfield. Give them something to think about where they can't just tee off. I mean, for that, Texas's defense, pretty adaptable. They can, with their personnel, they can play different ways. This is going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting in how, if Florida has found something just in themselves during the bye week. That's step one. And then applying that to finding something that will work versus a very, very competent defense. And I still think, right now, and even more so, because of the injury to Jacoby Jackson, how physical can you get in the run game with Jaden Ball? I mean, up front, Cole Brevard, Hero Canoe, Alex January, probably coming back now for Texas. I mean, they got 3 defensive tackles there that are really good up front for Texas. And again, got some powerful, speedy edge rushers, of course. They can pursue very well. This Texas defense is good. So does Florida throw the kitchen sink? Did they find something in this bye week that they can find some success with and just throw the kitchen sink at Texas? What do you have to lose? You're 1-3 at this point. Billy Napier hasn't shown a whole lot of creativity, a whole lot of aggression on the offensive side of the ball in his tenure so far. Well, it shouldn't take 1-3, shouldn't take back against the wall mentality, but maybe they feel it. Get creative, every tactic available, something to confuse, maybe disrupt Texas's defense. We'll see. But that's to me, that's what it's going to take. You can't just go out there with what we've seen most of the tenure and especially the first 4 weeks of this season. Something's going to have to give. All right, so on the other side of this, Florida defense versus the Texas offense, over the last 3 contests, Texas, 40 points per game. Of course, now, competition not the best. They can light up the scoreboard against those trio of opponents, allowing a combined average of 32.4 points per outing. The defenses they just faced, those defenses have allowed 32.4 points per outing. Each defense ranking 93rd or worst in points per game allowed. I mean, Florida had been facing those defenses, probably not as good, but you'd be looking better than what you have been. So competition is, that's why we asked the question this week. What do we really know about Texas? Played really good. Well, not really good, but played a really good team in Ohio State. Both teams didn't play their best in that game. But first game of the season. Then 3 patsies the very next week for Texas. And then, looking better, but they should have been looking better. What does it mean? We'll get an answer Saturday. Longhorns, kind of just like Florida now, very bad third down team. 35.8% of third down attempts, 19 of 53. That's 102nd in the nation for the Longhorns. 41.7% of fourth downs tried, 5 of 12. That's 108th in the country. And of course, Texas, 111th in the country in red zone scoring percentage, scoring 75% of their trips, 11 touchdowns, 4 field goals. So you see the issues there. They got their own issues. Third down, late downs, third down and fourth down. And once they get in the red zone, they bog down. For Florida's defense, still no LJ McCray. And of course, no Caleb Banks, Aaron Gates, Dijon Johnson out due to injury, likely for the season for all of them. Is this the game that catches up? All those injuries, is this the game that it catches up for Florida? Now, some ways yes, maybe some ways no. Cormani McClain fits in well. He's played very well this season. You like a rotation, but now you don't have the luxury of that. Cormani's got to be the guy now. Aaron Gates was splitting time with Sharif Denson. Still don't think most importantly, it's Caleb Banks up front. Now, we only got 1 game out of him. And he played well versus LSU when he was out there. Nobody can replicate what he brings to the table. And especially in the way he made players better around him. The players, kind of coming in for Banks right now, they just don't command double teams, nor create the type of havoc Banks is able to. So the Texas offensive line, they could present some chances, though. But it's not like the Gators defensive line was able to take advantage of a poor LSU offensive line. And my worry here will be if the pass rush can't get there, then Art should be able to have success in the middle of the field, behind the linebackers, in front of the safeties. Won't be a lot of big plays or, like the 40, 50-yard variety, but there could be some chunk plays if Florida cannot get to the quarterback here. Just going back to last year, you can't give them easy plays. Sark had this Gator defense and Ron Roberts and the players out there. He had them in a blender last year. So for Florida, maybe simplify. Keep it pretty basic. All the motions can confuse you. Florida looked really confused last year against this offense. What did they learn? What did they learn last year in this game? I think one of the key things, not let Arch get too comfortable in the run game, give him the confidence there. I don't think he'll kill you with his arm. I think he can play well enough for them to win with his arm. But I don't think it'll be solely the reason they win the game. So you can't give him the easy yards on the ground either. So it presents a challenge for this Gator defense, given that he can run. And he's a willing runner. And to get him comfortable to maybe open up things in this offense, they might lean on it even more. So interesting dynamic for me of what they worked on during the bye week in that regard. And that can add to the confusion there. We know it's going to be a part of their offense now. So Florida's got to prepare for it. But how much does it open up the other areas of this Texas offense? If you got to worry about him running, does that help out the tight ends? Where your linebackers now have to spy Arch a little bit more. How much does that open up the passing game? How much does it open up the running game with the running backs? Interesting dynamics in this game for me. Prediction time. I got to see it to believe it. Now, if you listen to a previous episode, and me and Alex were talking, and he brought up the scenarios of maybe a close Florida win or a Texas blowout. I thought about it, kind of leaning that way too in some ways. But the more I started looking at this Texas offense, they have their own struggles. So I'm going 30-17 Texas, and in a game that can look like a blowout. It's kind of similar to Florida, Texas A&M last year, where the score was a little closer than what the game really looked like. And that's kind of maybe how I see this one going. 17 points for Florida. I mean, that is an improvement. I think Lagway, maybe, yes, a little more comfortable. Yes, Dallas Wilson coming can open up some things. So put another touchdown on the board for the Gators in this one. Something out of the bye week will get them another touchdown. How sustainable will it be down the road? I don't know. But I think this game, first game after the bye week, it'll worth another score. But I do think the defense will have some trouble in this one. Adjustments due to the injury. Now, Florida did a great job last year with that. Down the stretch of last season, against LSU, against Ole Miss, and your defense, you're coming off that Texas game last year where it didn't look pretty at all. But your defense was able to just conjure up some things, even being very limited because of injuries. They played their tails off. I don't see a repeat of that. I do think Texas also figured out, they're coming off a bye week. They're coming off 3 straight games against cupcakes. So I think they're going to be showing some things they probably haven't shown, maybe since Ohio State or since last year. And I think that's going to be the difference. I think the injuries catch up a little bit for Florida, and I think Sark's really just going to have his offense ready to kind of keep control of this game. And then their defense. I mean, I mentioned Florida's offense figuring out some things. I think that's where it's going to be limited, though, is because you're playing a good Texas defense. So, I mean, this has 30-17. I mean, I'm going with the over for the over-under by a couple points, mainly because I think Texas figures out some things on offense. But there is the possibility where it does. This is just an ugly game. If Florida's defense shows up a little more than I think they might, and I still think this Florida defense can be good. I just think Texas coming off a bye week is that's the worrisome part for me. I think they figure some things out on offense as well. Once again, how sustainable? I'm not sure. But I think coming off of a bye week, they'll have some new wrinkles that might catch Florida a little off guard in this one. So, all right, 30-17 Texas is somewhere in that range. But I won't be surprised. I won't be surprised if it's a low-scoring, ugly game, just given what we've seen from both offenses this far. Like, I'm predicting both offenses to play a little bit better than what they have been. Maybe they don't. Maybe they don't. All right, everybody. Once again, big thanks to Gerry Hamilton. Love what he brings. Had him on last year for the first time. Bringing him on again. Right there on Texas football. But glad he could join us once again and give us a preview of Texas. Florida, Texas in the swamp should be a fun time. Looking forward to it anyway. Closer to the game we get. Certainly always look forward to Saturdays. But the hype just a little subdued in this one. Not as big as I thought it would be preseason, but Texas coming to the swamps still pretty unique in its own way. So definitely excited for that angle of it. All right, that'll do it for this episode of Gators Breakdown. I am your host, David Waters. You can find me on social media at GatorDave_SEC. Guys and girls out there, thank you for joining me on this episode of Gators Breakdown.